Hey everybody, what a day. First of all, let me say how emotional it was to go through the evidence that I've been procrastinating because of the emotions that come with not being able to protect my child from that, and to know that she's most likely experiencing a lot of the same thing. So I had to woosah a few times, a little bit of, healing from it though, to open up and go into that. But I wanted to tell everybody how court went. When I went into the clerk's office, first of all, Judge Miller's clerk tried to help me, and I knew it was her. And then I recognized that her name was on all of the fraudulent filings as well. In addition to last night realizing that Judge Miller did things to manipulate the court file so no one would grant me custody, or that he would be able to continue to conceal her. He never acknowledged that protective orders even existed from Guilford County. They put them in a separate file, and he didn't write any file numbers related to them on the order where he recuses himself. Then he puts that order inside of the file of the, fake 50B protective order that my ex files for and was denied. So he puts his recusal in that file number. Also, I, ran into the clerks and I knew it was, his one clerk, and it appears as though that the judge that dismissed the protective orders in Forsyth County, the chief district court judge, it appears as though that she never actually saw the orders from Guilford County. It appears as though I got a copy of the entire file today. There are things that have been added and omitted, things that have been constantly removed. Somebody has stayed on top of removing all of the evidence out of that file and trying to keep the facts as far away as they could from it. When the, Judge Miller's clerk, meaning that Judge Miller is the judge that has destroyed many lives and dragged us in the courthouse and harmed my daughter by his rulings and his lack of insight, his incompetence. I asked her for her supervisor. I said, I don't want any help. I need somebody other than you. You've been involved in this fraud. I said that, and I did audio record all of this. The supervisor comes out, and then I proceed to tell him everything that they did, step by step, and how it has affected my child. And a lot of people were listening. I, went to file the motion, and during that time, I wanted to go and make a copy of the entire case file. And going through it, or before they made a copy of it, which obviously they needed it for the hearing, the file disappeared for about 20 or 30 minutes, and things that I saw in the file before they made a copy are gone. Anything that portrays or shows my daughter's dad in a negative light, meaning the facts, have been removed. Even his constantly filing indigency, it's been removed. It's basically, my perspective on it is just a pile of slander and nothing about my child. And I saw that other clerk, and I looked at her, and she heard everything I said, how my daughter she'll have permanent medical issues and psychological issues due to the actions of those in the court system, the family court system. And I want them to be held accountable, but, obviously, like I said, my first priority is Tylea. And so I got in front of the judge, and he he was fair. He was empathetic. He understood that this was emotional and I needed to be redirected a couple times back to what we were talking about, because when you hear, you know, someone who has control over your child's, you know, her well-being at the moment, even though you want to be patient, you get a little bit frustrated because obviously it's been an extended period of time, once again, where she's been concealed from me. And that's what doesn't make it an emergency, because it's been that extended period of time. He did allow me to present evidence. He did give me some good advice from the bench. It wasn't, you know, legal advice per se, but he said, and he said in not so many words, he actually said, you catching what I'm throwing? To bring up the fraud and the illegal court actions within the courthouse isn't going to help my daughter right now. They denied the emergency custody order, but we have a hearing on May the 20th. And we have another guardian ad litem being appointed. I told him about my concerns with the guardian ad litem. We did have a positive experience, but then this one left the agency, and then another one got involved who was biased and, you know, really harmed us during the investigation. And nothing is left in the file about the good GAL's report that did the full investigation and really did her work. But obviously a manipulative abuser was able to coerce and manipulate all these people into believing him, and therefore not continuing to dig where they would have found those medical records that I found. So I really want to approach it in giving them the benefit of the doubt at this time. Obviously, you know, the judge held up my criminal record versus his, and he was like, I think it speaks pretty clearly, which his is extensive and mine is basically non-existent. He said that my ex gets out on June 16th. And that obviously there has been a major change. We will have a modification on custody. He suggested the contempt that I am going to file tomorrow morning, contempt motion. And I know at this point there's no way that the Children's Law Center of North Carolina, who has appointed 2 attorney GALs, which I read the laws of the state based on, you know, immunity for court appointees. But she was grossly negligent. The second GAL was grossly negligent, so I would be able to sue her. And I do feel as though to make any changes in the system, we're going to have to get them in the pockets. So I think that everyone should consider civil suits in civil court against appointees, officials, attorneys, anybody who's ignoring abuse and who's ignoring harm to children. I think that suing people civilly might get a little bit of things moving in the judicial area or the legislative area, because, you know, people pay attention when they got to pay. But first things first, the facts speak for themselves. The medical records are going to have to be acknowledged now. The systemic court-ordered slander with a side of gossip is over. Time's up. The judge saw that I had filed something that said basically I was traveling for my own safety and I didn't want to give a physical address. And I filed that letter that said where they could contact me and not to hold any hearings in my absence. I attached a letter from my therapist that lines out how much danger my child's in, how she suffered, that she went through the medical records, that I was, you know, healthy and appropriate and stable, and he was the opposite. And the judge said that reflected really well on me, and it's very clear, you know, that we can move forward from here in what's in her best interest. The medical records are, like I've said before, damning, just disgusting what they've done to Talia, and I think that's what causes me so much breakdown, especially when the abuser is allowed to attack you in court with no accountability, like in certain settings in front of certain judges. They just break you down, and then you're not a good witness for yourself. You're not a good attorney. You're not, you don't remember what you were trying to say. You're just kind of like feeling destroyed over again because the abuse is allowed to be perpetuated, and that's not viewed as a problem, and that has to stop. Something that I really think that is extremely important, and I'd like to know from everyone else in the group how your, region handles this. If anybody's looked in their entire court file, what if all do they contain in your court file for custody? Are they just keeping orders? Are they allowing the evidence to stay in the file? Are they leaving a financial statement? Are they showing protective order filings in your custody file? Are they showing criminal records in the custody file, active and updated? Are they showing drug test results in the custody file, separate from what the judges are writing? Because there are, hearings and trials that last for days, and then say you have a corrupt or a biased judge that doesn't have children's best interests at heart, and he just discredits the mother, like in my case, just because she said the child was abused. And also in my case, he ignored the evidence, ignored the facts, the reports, the investigation, and handed my child over to him regardless of the dangerous facts. He gave the same weight to what we had stated to the court even after investigation, therefore completely prejudiced against a woman that was trying to protect her child. So anyone else reading these filings, these orders, say, an abuser is allowed to file, and it's getting stacked up in the record, or in the court file. And in the meantime, you say you have just dismissals, or you have protective orders that the mother's filing to try to stop this. That's put in a separate file, right? So any judge looking for what's going on in child custody and protection and say she doesn't get her protective order, do those facts go away? They don't exist because, somebody didn't say it happened. Somebody said it didn't happen. At what point does the system say that we're basing our best interests in child custody decisions off of a paragraph that doesn't even address what was discussed or proven or disproven in the hearing? And in addition to that, obviously, findings of fact in a biased court with slanderous GAL reports who don't properly investigate are not in the best interest of a child. The children get lost in the court file. It's like, when do the children start mattering? Like, are we going to put their artwork in here? Are we going to, there needs to be a better system with family court for the court files specifically. If other judges are seeing this, or if just any judge is seeing this, there needs to be a system that covers bases for who's filing what. What about investigations? Is an abusive man that's been proven to be abusive or even been alleged to have been abusive, is he concealing the child when it comes time for therapy, when it comes time for investigations, forensic interviews? Is an abuser able to get unsupervised custody of a child during investigations? If so, the whole investigation's tainted. If an abusive man can control a grown woman who's intelligent and strong, how do you think it's going to go for a little child that's, completely defenseless in an abuser's care with no mother to protect them, who was stable and great as a mother until she left an abuser? Something has to change with this. I'm just in shock looking at the court file. How the hell is that in the best interest of a child? And what planet? On what planet? Sounds to me like it's just perpetuating how lawyers capitalize upon high conflict custody cases, which doesn't even exist. There is no high conflict. That's a term that the courts use so they can make this money. Obviously, there's money to be made in this. If we say it's domestic violence and it's child abuse, there's going to be a different response. They're not going to be able to bank off of mothers who get to protect their children, because the fathers aren't going to be allowed to come in and use the court as a way to hurt them. It's like, in what world does a man's right to be a father to the child who, you know, has a long history, despite proven facts, of being unhealthy, just because he's a dad and he says he wants custody, that we just must, you know, believe that he's a good guy and that men wouldn't come to court to abuse their children? They clearly are. They clearly do. They kill their children. They abuse. They molest their children. And that's not all men. Not all abusers sexually molest their children, but the percentage and the greater percentage of incest survivors are sexually abused by their fathers. And so when mothers aren't believed in custody court and abusers are allowed to capitalize upon child protection systems, confuse investigations, taint investigations, and prevent disclosures, at what point, who's going to protect the children? Who gets to do that then? Because they're silenced. They're completely silenced. A good father and a good man is not going to drag a mother through court and try to take the child from them. They will know that that's not in the best interest of the child. And something I need to just understand is, how is it that when a woman says that there was domestic violence in a relationship and the relationship had ended, and is there an argument by why the relationship ended, or was there abuse? Does the court just think that women just make false allegations to try to get back at a man? Wouldn't it be more believable to think that a man is going to use a system that empowers fathers to get custody, to get access to the mother once she leaves, because he can't get physical access anymore, intimate access? The most intimate thing closest to her is her child. That is touching her in ways he cannot. And when the system figures this out, our children will be able to have lives, because a lot of lives have been destroyed by poor court practices. And I see changes happening all over the world and in the U.S., and thank God for that. I think it's really time for a change, and our children are, you know, they're not property. They're love. They're our future. They're, you know, they need their mother's love, attention, care, and support, free from having to feel terror as they hand a child back over to a man that they know is disturbed and cruel and wants to be in control of them still. And through their children and through the court, they're going to keep the control. That's never going to end. It's a trap. A woman cannot leave if she shares a child with an abuser, and the court makes it so. And that's something that really, really has to change. I mean, it has to change. It just has to. You can't re-victimize a survivor for doing the right thing by coming to family court and being honest. And I think that was, you know, something that I didn't expect. I was just overly honest. I really, really told them the truth about everything. And he lied to every word. He lied to every investigator. He lied to everyone. Like, really crazy, scary, disturbing lies. Like, he instills fear. And he was so good at it that the investigation was compromised over and over. And look where we're at now. And I bet a lot of the moms that are watching this are in that situation now. And I mean, some of you have gotten your children's custody back and your ex is in jail, or, you know, you're just going through the motions and cringing, and your baby's holding on to you crying as you have to send them back. And you try to have normal conversation, and then you're viewed as having a conflict when there's no such thing as high conflict. Again, only one person out of the duo is causing the conflict. The other one is trying to protect the child. This is not a fight. This is a plead to be free of abuse and harm inflicted by the systems post-separation. So anyway, that's my spiel for today. And I'm about to work on this contempt motion. and make sure that he's properly served there at the jail, because he's a service evader, but he can't evade this one. Also, try to get some rest because I'm like exhausted, and kind of like, you know, feel proud that I was able to take that power back. There's one more thing I want to mention though. The judge asked me, he said, why didn't you come back to court and file something? Why didn't you file another contempt? Why didn't you come back? I was like, look what has been done. It's like the big gaslight. I was slandered, yet I have direct evidence to the contrary of everything that was portrayed negatively about me. Our protective orders were unfairly, unjustly dismissed without cause, even though we were being terrorized. Nobody investigated. It, you know, was completely unfair, and we had been destroyed in the courthouse. And not only that, I was in fear of the abuser, who was free to do whatever he wanted to us. And going back to court and having interactions with him put me more at risk to where I could never protect her. You know, just because he's in jail, I felt safe enough to come out and do anything. And when I'm finding out about his scheme about, you know, this institutional slander, so no one would listen, it's like, until I figured out why people were treating me so just cruelly and just like weird, it was like I had no idea. I didn't feel confident enough. I didn't feel like it would even matter. I felt like I was treated so cruelly and like a joke. So, and then at the same time, I look back and see how I might have, you know, seemed unstable. I was so traumatized, and I kept getting attacked like nonstop with things that just terrified me, and because I couldn't protect my baby no matter what I did. And that feeling always throws me. I can get, you know, super doing really well in life and come to, you know, a really high point. And this has happened numerous times where the abuser's been able to come in and use my child, hurt her, take me through court, have me arrested, and take everything, destroy my life and my credibility or my character, you know, assassinate my character, slander me, and more, multiple times throughout the years. And I've noticed a pattern where it would break me. Like I would be emotionally just gone, devastated. I couldn't even, I mean, I was sick. I couldn't even barely like talk to anyone. That's called traumatic responses. That's called someone who is surviving trauma and grieving for a child who's suffering they can't protect. That's not an unstable woman. That's a mother being stripped of her, you know, most innate need, her duty that she needs to do. And then that's when you see instability caused by the abuser and the family court system. So it shouldn't be a shock when it's said that once a woman comes to court about abuse, she's labeled as mentally unstable, because, you know, in most cases, her children were taken away from her and given to the abuser. She becomes unstable then. It made me unstable, and I'm very stable. So rather than a mental illness, it should be a civil ruling for damages. All right, y'all. Have a great day. Till next time. Peace.